I think once that really kicks into high gear, the executive order now just says don't sell and acquire in budget neutral strategies. But when they do actually have legislation that says go and buy, or if Howard Lutnick puts together one of those budget neutral strategies and starts executing acquisition, then I think we'll start to see a rush. And that rush is likely going to be something that we haven't ever seen before. It is going to trigger that rampage of capital into Bitcoin. And that's when you see omega candles, and that's when you see even more volatility. We could go up 300,000 and then down 200,000 in a couple days.
Samson Mow, CEO of Jan3, warns that Bitcoin is about to experience an unprecedented surge in demand due to recent executive orders that block government Bitcoin sales and pave the way for direct institutional acquisitions. Once new legislation or structured strategies are in place, large-scale buying could trigger a rapid price spike, possibly hitting $300,000 in mere days. While volatility may rise, long-term stability and support will likely follow. Mow urges all Bitcoin holders to prepare and stay informed. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video as Samson Mow shares more exciting insights you don't want to miss.
Also, if you enjoy listening to crypto-related content, please show your support by liking and subscribing to this channel by following the link in my bio, and get access to my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox. Each newsletter contains on-chain data, forecasts and expert predictions. All of this is available free of charge. It only takes a moment to sign up and you can always change your mind later.
Now back over to Samson Mow.
Eventually people will demand to be paid in Bitcoin because you know, their suppliers, like the grocery store or department store, whatever, will want Bitcoin too. So it's just like an amplification of demand from all parts of society that want Bitcoin. So eventually you working for a company will have to ask the company, like, pay me in Bitcoin because I can't buy groceries with this paper anymore. But hyper-Bitcoinization depends on how you define it, but I define it as the point at which you no longer need to convert Bitcoin to fiat anymore. You can just live on a Bitcoin standard and earn sats and spend sats. But I believe it's coming faster than most people would expect because these types of changes in money, in the base money that everyone uses, are very quick changes. It's not a slow, gradual progression where, you know, in 2 years, maybe we'll be at 20%. And then another 2 years, we'll be at 40%. It's quite exponential because when most people stop wanting the fiat, then, you know, everyone stops wanting the fiat because it's like a race against time to get rid of the fiat and get into something harder, which is Bitcoin. I would say we'll look back at the period up till 1971 as the monetary dark ages, this period of time in which nothing really made sense. Because if you think about it, when we went off the gold standard, all of a sudden, this paper that was designed to represent gold, you know, it's a IOU for gold, suddenly was disconnected. And you could now take this paper, and whoever can print the paper can make more of it to buy back that asset that was supposed to be represented by that paper. So it's like bizarro world. Nothing really makes sense anymore because you have a relatively finite hard asset in gold, and you have, you know, a representation of that asset in terms of paper or digital paper, whatever you want to call that. And now this can buy all of this. So, you know, if you really think about it and you sleep on it and you mull it over, it's like wacko that suddenly this valuable thing can be bought by this worthless thing. And this is sort of the conclusion of that experiment. And I think we'll look back and in 50 or 60 years, historians will look back and say, wow, I can't believe we were so primitive that we were led to believe that, you know, this piece of paper had value. And that's sort of the realization that they'll look at it. Not, it's like Bretton Woods type, you know, we agreed to do something, but it's just, we were all insane for decades using paper. Well, you kind of alluded to it, but if you give them the solution, then you just have to make some hard adjustments in your life, and that's it, right? There's not that much to talk about. We had a call with some people working in a country that is possibly right for Bitcoin nation state adoption. And they were telling me, like, this is a problem here, this is a problem, and this is a problem. And I'm like, well, just Bitcoin can fix all of those things, right? So the solution is so simple. And maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, it's so simple, people just don't want to acknowledge that it is that simple, that the money is broken, and that's it. But as to why Joe Rogan doesn't get another Bitcoiner on, I think he had Antonopoulos on at some point, but yeah. I don't really know. Maybe we're just really bad at getting on Rogan. Like, I always see him tagged, and people suggest, Saylor should go on, Adam Back should go on, and even me, but he never reacts. So maybe we just have to direct our efforts better to get somebody on. But yeah, it's not a hard problem to solve, because I think any of us could make an excellent guest and talk about all these things. And I don't think it's a conspiracy from his part that he doesn't want to get the solution. But, there's always a hotter topic that will generate more views than the money is broken, unfortunately for us. But, once people are interested in Bitcoin, I think it's really hard to look at anything else and think that, well, yeah, I can ignore the money and we can just talk about these other problems, because, that's like kind of where we are at. We see every problem going back to the root cause of the money being broken. And that's all we think about. At least I think so. Fixing the problem it really requires a lot of conviction and a lot of thinking and a lot of action. American Hodl went on one of his tirades recently, and he said something, I don't know if he scripted it or what, but it was really, really well said. He's like, fix your shit, get your shit together, and buy your Bitcoin. And, that's not easy to do. Everyone has things that they're worried about, they need a new toaster, they need a new TV, and they've got a vacation plan somewhere. And to fix your shit and buy your Bitcoin means you have to, stop some of those other extraneous things that you have planned already in your life and buy your Bitcoin. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's like telling a kid to take their medicine, right? They don't want to take the medicine. It doesn't taste good. And it's the same with coming to that realization that oil spill is the problem, and you kind of need to fix that before you fix anything else. Most people could probably scrape together an emergency fund, but that requires, delaying gratitude in a number of areas, that, cancel your Netflix subscription for a while, or, cancel your Spotify for a while, or whatever, right? There are ways around it, but everyone sort of is set in their ways. And that's the biggest problem. It's not so much that we're not reaching them. It's not so much that our message is not reaching them. I think we're just not reaching them, period. So that's why I think we have to think of better ways to do this, and, more creative ways, like Bitcoin trading cards, or whatever, or even like the nation state adoption work we do. That is a lot of outreach to people that are possibly hostile to Bitcoin and very possibly unaware of Bitcoin. And on the best case, they're open to listening. But, all these problems that face individuals when it's coming to terms with Bitcoin and the problems of the world, it's the same with the nation state, right? They have their problems. They have, they have to deal with poverty or inflation, or they have an IMF loan or something, and there's always something on their plate. And you have to deal with elections coming up, right? There's always an election coming up or something. So everyone's just really busy, and you kind of need to pause, take a breath, and look at the whole big picture. I would say a lot of it is behind the scenes and done relatively quietly. So we did see a case of this in Suriname. So we were engaging with the central bank there to allocate 1% to Bitcoin. And this is before the SBR, right? Like we kind of knew it's going to happen. And we were telling them, you could do this. And they were interested to do it. And then after we left, we actually went there to meet with them. And then after we left, the World Bank went to visit, and then everything went quiet. So you don't really get to see a lot of things happening out in the open, right? All of this economic hitmanning is largely done quietly and behind the scenes, and it's just exertion of force from behind closed door and, quietly. But the interesting thing with the IMF in El Salvador was that was kind of out in the open, very public and very transparent, right? El Salvador passed their Bitcoin law and went all in on Bitcoin, and you could see that it's a struggle between a sovereign country and one of these supranational organizations. And it was very much publicly aired. So that was a very novel case where you can actually see the battle in the public eye, right? They're releasing research, quote unquote, and publishing articles in various formats and newspapers criticizing the adoption and explaining the risks, because they can't really just do that kind of quiet quelling of the rebellion. They are limited in when they can apply leverage and what leverage they can apply. So yeah, I mean, it was very interesting, and now we see that they have an agreement with El Salvador, and it seems El Salvador agreed begrudgingly, but you can see it all playing out. And the question really is, how much longer can that go on as more countries look towards Bitcoin as the solution to their problems, which it is, and the kind of normalization of Bitcoin strategies, especially from the US. Like, if even before the SPR, you could look to the ETFs and say the largest asset manager on the planet has launched a Bitcoin ETF. Why wouldn't a poor country allocate some of their capital, some of their reserves to Bitcoin in some way, just as a prudent asset management strategy, which, in theory, every central bank of every country should be doing if that is their mandate, to stabilize prices and ensure economic stability. But that is not enough, actually. But the SBR, I think, is very different because it is direct government acquisition. And I think once that really kicks into high gear, the executive order now just says don't sell and acquire in budget neutral strategies. But when they do actually have legislation that says go and buy, or if Howard Lutnick puts together one of those budget neutral strategies and starts executing acquisition, then I think we'll start to see a rush. And that rush is likely going to be something that we haven't ever seen before. It is going to trigger that rampage of capital into Bitcoin. And that's when you see Omega candles, and that's when you see even more volatility. We could go up 300,000 and then down 200,000 in a couple days. There's this discussion, like, what's more important, grassroots, a Bitcoin adoption, like, a Bitcoin Beach, Bitcoin Lake, Bitcoin Jungle. I can name all of them, but I can't right now. I won't. Yeah. But, or is it nation state level engagement and seeing the government say something? And I think grassroots is very important because it's very real. And it is these people actively rebooting themselves, rebooting their minds to understand the problem and understand Bitcoin. But the nation state stuff is also very important too, because, just imagine a country full of people that are on autopilot. If the government says, yeah, we're looking into Bitcoin, or we're setting up a special economic zone so people can pay in Bitcoin, or we're looking at Bitcoin policy, or we're setting up a Bitcoin strategic reserve, that is where the people on autopilot listen, right? Like, unfortunately, people still, they pay very heavy attention to the people in charge, or to wealthy people, or people of influence, or even the mainstream media to some extent. Less so now, but still, you have to go through these channels, I think, if you want to reach everybody. And this is why I think it's kind of, it's not useful that we're all, like, a lot of Bitcoiners are going to Nostr, because that's just an echo chamber. I'm just going to say it. It's an echo chamber, and you're not reaching anybody new because it's nobody that is not already into Bitcoin going there. Very unlikely. So you kind of need to stay where the people are. And this is why I don't really go on Nostr much. I'm still mostly on X because that's where most people are. And that's where all the interesting engagement comes, when you have conflict between us and no coiners, and us and, pre-coiners, and us and the haters. That's where the interesting stuff comes out of. So by just going off and saying, yeah, I'm leaving this, I'm going here, it doesn't really spread the message at all. And it doesn't increase the size of the audience, and it doesn't increase our reach. I would say, by and large, most people try very hard to comply with the rules, right? They don't want to, be experiencing
They're good
state
people.
violence
Yeah.
firsthand,
Yeah.
or they're good people, or they believe that following the rules is good, right? And this is why you had all those kind of atrocities happening during the COVID pandemic. So, people are trying to be good citizens and reporting their neighbors for violation and all this stuff. And, it extends in most parts of society. People generally try to follow the rules and, be a good citizen, quote unquote.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to access my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox.